Hey YouTube, Jeff checking in. Tonight I wanted to talk to you about making inner city panoramic images. Now this is a type of photo I like to create all the time. And I'm not talking about those broad cityscape images, those skyline panoramics that really capture the big sense of the city, the big buildings, the sweep of and the grandeur of the city with buildings across the image and maybe a fantastic sunset or something like that. Those aren't the images that I want to talk about in this video. Now we've all taken them, and I'm going to show you an example of one right now. This is a panoramic I took in the city of Edmonton, which is on the North Saskatchewan River here in Alberta. Now this is a classic skyline panorama. You have the river, the buildings, the clouds, and really this is an environmental portrait. It brings all those elements of the city being situated in nature, subject to the elements of nature and the weather all at the same time. And I love taking these skyline images. They're beautiful, and they really, I think, capture the city in a way that we commonly see them. So they're great to do. But in this image, I mean, you couldn't tell that there were people living in the city, other than maybe a few lights on in the building. There really is no discussion in this image about the quality of life in the city or the day-to-day, the nitty-gritty of being an urban city dweller. And so I kind of want to talk about the images today that actually do talk about or speak to life in the city. And I think the panoramic, it's, you can't necessarily say the best way to do something or even a better way to do something, but it's definitely, I think, a unique way of taking urban images. So I'm going to go through why I think that taking inner city urban panoramics is a great thing to do. And to start off, what I wanted to sort of address up front is the idea of just taking a wide angle photo, slapping on a 16 to 35 or 12 to 24, whatever you have, just taking a big wide shot and then getting all the subject matter inside through that big single image. Well, it's important to understand how wide angle lenses work to understand that you'd end up with a very different result. Now, this isn't a video about wide angle lenses, how they work, how to shoot them. It's about panoramics, but just briefly, with a wide angle lens, when you take a photograph, the elements close to the lens appear large and the elements far from the lens appear quite small. So what happens in a city situation is, for example, if you take a shot of something relatively close to the lens, like a feature of the environment, whether it's a bench or element of a city street, everything in the distance, the buildings, based on the perspective that you shoot with, they'll all appear, or generally will appear, quite small. And this will create sort of it's not distortion necessarily, but a view of the city that the eye doesn't actually see. So you can't just take a wide angle shot and then crop it down into a panoramic aspect, like a 16 by 9 aspect or something like that, because like I said, the subjects that are close to the lens will be large, and the subjects further away will be very, very small. And here's an example of what I mean. This shot here, the subject close to the lens is huge, and here the buildings in the distance are actually quite small. It's just not the same thing as shooting a panoramic on a lens that's not wide angle. So now I want to show you a few examples of panoramics that I took that do have objects close to the lens, but you'll be able to see that the buildings in the back don't seem small or out of proportion or sort of weird, I guess, in any way. The first example is a shot of the Louvre, and I'm actually standing right behind these light posts that are the foreground elements of the shot. And then you see the facade of one wing of the museum directly behind, and you also see the glass pyramid. And none of those elements look tiny. They all look nicely proportioned, and they really fit nicely with the foreground elements, which are the lamps. And you couldn't do this with a wide angle. This section shot is Calton Hill in Edinburgh. Now, the monument at the top of the hill is actually pretty close to where I'm shooting from. I can't think of what it's called. Dugald Stewart Memorial, maybe. And then you'll see the Edinburgh skyline in the background with the Edinburgh Castle further away. The Balmoral Hotel steeple is there, or I guess you wouldn't say steeple, but tower. And the skyline is still there. It still fits into the image. It doesn't disappear. So, you know, it's a great way to capture like a foreground element and then the panoramic skyline behind it. So this is kind of what I mean by maintaining the proportion of the image by not using a wide angle lens, but by using you know, something more in the sort of 24 to 70 range, or even a longer lens to get these type of shots. Okay, in this last panoramic image is the Pont Couvert in Strasbourg. It's a medieval bridge fortification that was built across the Ill River. And you can just see the first tower is it's much closer to where I'm shooting from than the distant towers and buildings, and they still sort of recede into the horizon in a way that's manageable and reflective of what the eye would have actually seen. Okay, but you know, and maybe you're asking like why I take panoramics at all. You know, it's like I said when I started this video, I really think that they do capture the city in a way that a single image won't. You can take multiple images, stitch them together into a panorama, and show the city in a way that you really feel when you're there. And so here's another image from Strasbourg that I think sort of illustrates my point. Now this is a panoramic image. It's taken along a canal in the river. You can see the people on the left-hand side of the image, the buildings on the right. There's the stone bridge in the background, and the water is sort of rushing in through the center of the image. And this was really the image. This is what I saw when I was there. There's tourists looking onto the scene. The eye took it all in at one time, and I couldn't have taken this image as a single shot. This second image here is of the Keizersgracht Canal in Amsterdam, and again the panorama shows the entire scene, and only a panorama can really capture this, the two separate bridges, the canals meeting together. If I had just taken one image, it would have just been one of the bridges, or sorry, one or the other of the bridges, maybe shot in the middle. It just wouldn't have worked the same way. Okay, so now I want to show you a couple of examples of images that I think really do sort of highlight the intimate details of city life. They really do show what you see, like what you experience. You're on a street. There's people everywhere. There's cafes. There's life burbling all around. And this first one is shot in the Latin Quarter in Paris, Rue de la Hachette, I believe, and another street that I can't remember. They come together, and these are very narrow streets. You know, you'd think just wide enough for a vehicle to get down in the middle if they were allowed. But they're full of people, they're full of life, they're full of restaurants, and the two streets merge together into a little intersection. You can't get that full scene or the details of the life converging into that intersection without shooting a panorama. This second image that I want to show you, this is shot in Glasgow, just on Buchanan Street, which is the main shopping street in Glasgow, in Scotland. And it's the Argyle Gallery or Arcade. I can't remember exactly if it's Arcade or Gallery, but it's the Argyle shopping area. And there's just it was a covered shopping strip that kind of made a 90-degree corner where I was taking my shot from. And so this was a 3-image panorama, and it captures the shopping center in a way that you just can't do without doing a panorama. Yeah, and this final shot that I want to show you, this is downtown Disney at night, and you know, hey, who isn't a Disney fan, right? This shot really shows the flow on this street, and the panorama I think works great because you get this great left to right flow through the image, people walking in and out of the frame, the stores on each side, in a way that I think is actually pretty unique from what I've seen of those kind of shopping street photos. So yeah, I think it works really well. It captures the feeling of being a tourist shopping on the main sort of downtown Disney street, and I think it works really well as a panorama. Okay, and I think the last thing that I really wanted to bring up with respect to panoramas, now this is a little different. I'm talking now about vertiramas, and if you're not familiar with a vertirama, it's like a panorama, only you're shooting vertical images and stitching verticals one on top of the other, so to speak. And again, I find the vertirama is really cool to do because you get the full height of a building, but you don't lose the top to the wide angle lens effect where you get a huge bottom and a top that's faded into the distance. And I think they're fun to do, and they're unique. So this first image is of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Strasbourg, and you see the painters at the bottom, and you can follow the main spire of the cathedral all the way up to the top. And it recedes I think at a very pleasant and very realistic angle, and it gives it a different feel to an image like that than a wide angle would. At least, you know, I really think so. And another example that I wanted to show was this church in Aberdeen. It's kind of a gray white stone church with you know, gray cloud background and the bright red doors, and it's just a cool way to sort of get a tall image or a tall structure into an image and keep these kind of crazy proportions. It's a great tool for inner city panoramics to catch the life. Now I don't have anyone on the steps in this one, but I still think as an architecture shot it works really well. Okay, well, I hope this short pitch, I guess, for shooting panoramics inside the city is something that you'll try in your photography. Hopefully I've convinced you that it's a fun thing and it's a cool way to shoot, and yeah, maybe inspire you to do something similar. And yeah, anytime we can you know, try something new, change up the way we shoot, it brings life back into the art, and it's inspires us, I think, a little more, no matter what level we're at, whether you're sort of a newbie like me or even an advanced or a pro. I think it's still a great way to shoot. So yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, I should ask you to subscribe and to like and share this, but I won't. Actually, I will. If you want to subscribe, that would be awesome. Hit like at the very least if you made it this far, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, take care.